So meta report stuff. We're gonna cover 2 weeks actually. So I've got info for the past 2 weeks, week 3 and week 4. Like based off of the results so far, I think we can all assume that regardless of the weakness that Megidramon has, in that ace cards absolutely destroy it, it's still really good because it does what it does so quickly. I play a really aggressive deck right now in Hunters, and I thought that, you know, I had a decent chance fighting against Megidramon, but in like 3 turns I died. So yeah, and I have aces in the deck to try and stop the Megidramon things, and it's just, yeah, not enough. Megidramon's just so fast right now that a lot of decks in the game just can't keep up, and the power of Gravity Press, or Gravity Crush, excuse me, Mim Boosts, Trainings, Jack Raid, the plethora of free memory it gets is so crazy. It's so crazy. Right up above that is Royal Knights, a deck that can put up some pretty big blockers, and also is just fast in its own right, thanks to cards like the Alphamon Oryukin Ace, the Crimson Mode Ace as well. And the fact that it can use Ace on your opponent's turn, it's easy for them to get out of level 6 or level 6 so they can Ace on top of it rather quickly, just because of the way the deck works, right? Being able to reduce costs, so you can just play big Digimon from the get-go. Below that, for week 3, kind of surprising. There was a lot of Imperial Dramon representation coming out of Asia, and I know that Japan rates the deck pretty highly. I mean, the second place at Worlds last year topped with Imperial Dramon, the blue-green version, not the virus version. But this doesn't hold, so chill. Yeah, I don't know, the deck's strong, but to make no mistake, I feel like some of the stronger decks in the game right now, like the 3 you see around it, Megidra, Royal Knights, and Sakuyamon, maybe give it some trouble, just because it has trouble keeping up with the speed of those decks. Sakuyamon, what more do we need to say at this point? I feel like she has just been, a menace. It's like, does my opponent find their pieces, and do I get zip-zop comboed by Valor Arm this turn, or do I just get hit by the Ruin Mode Blanket, and I don't get to play the game for a turn? I will say, I feel like with BT21, Bandai's trying to address the Ruin Mode Blanket allegations by giving players ways to play bigger Digimon. The new Adventure slash Hero tie definitely feels like a way around some of these effects. The minus 10k I think is a little bit too big for most decks, so if they can manage to keep turn with the Ruin Mode up and then swing with it, the minus 10k is kind of backbreaking, even for a lot of the newer decks in the game. We'll see how they try to address this. Knowing that we have the Sakuyamon advanced deck coming, it's kind of crazy if we don't see a hit to this deck at some point, in my opinion. But that's just me. Dropping down to the champion level, a deck that I really love, Crossheart, I'm happy to see it doing well. I think that they kind of sit in this really nice middle ground where it's not a pure evolve up from the ground up kind of deck, but it's also not like a Royal Knights deck where it's just hard playing stuff. It feels like it's right in the middle, so I feel like whenever I play this deck, I always have options, with the exception of defense. I don't have defense. I've been thinking recently, like, players have been adding in Valder Arms or Chaos Mons into the deck as a way to, like, try to be a little bit defensive, but I was thinking, what if I just throw in a Venusmon instead and just hope that I can get to an Omni Shoutmon for a free evolution and then evolve into Venusmon and stop evolve effects for a turn? For the most part, that shuts off Megidramon and Sakuyamon. Maybe it's worth messing with, but I don't know. Unfortunately, none of the list that I saw last week had that kind of tech in there. That's just me theory crafting. And then, again, kind of a weird top here, Zafagamon. I don't know what Zafagamon is doing against some of the better decks in the game right now, so I'm really interested to see. And none of the lists that I looked at were incredibly crazy, so it feels like they were mostly like regular Zafagamon stuff. Maybe just more people playing the deck. I'm not too sure. Yeah, what is Zafagamon doing there is the question that I also want to know, because none of the lists like had any like crazy spice in them that like we hadn't seen before. And I wouldn't imagine that Zafagamon has a good matchup against Megidramon or Sakuyamon. They really can't interact because you don't typically present a board, and then Megidramon also doesn't really present a board until they want to win. I'm really interested to see why and if this continues to happen. As we drop down to the rookie level, it is like all of the other decks in the game, it feels like. We have like this like really small concentration of like the top 3, maybe top 3 decks, and then after that I feel like everything else just kind of like fills that second layer, which I guess is not an awful thing. It means that there's lots and lots of decks that are like somewhat viable at this point. You've got Appmon, Galacticmon, Jesus Christ. This is a little bit misleading. Sometimes whenever you see Gallantmon, there are like 2 versions of this list floating around, and we'll take a look at a list today. The first version is like the regular old Gallantmon stuff using the Guillemon and the Growlmon cards. The second one is the blue version of Gallantmon, which I think is a little bit cooler and has maybe a little bit of a wider Yeah, a little bit of a wider ability to fight back against not only Digimon, but Tamers as well. And we'll take a look later, so stay tuned. Gallantmon, one of the decks that I really enjoy seeing, or playing rather. I'm happy to see it here alongside Heroes. Keep your eyes on Heroes. That's it. Megidramon Virus. I'm so glad to see this deck keep popping up because it feels like every time I look on Discord, people are like, they sleeping on Megidramon Virus. We're gonna have our day as soon as that new scramble or not that new Min Boost comes out. But no. You guys are on our radar. You cannot hide from us. Alongside Velgar Loop, Alphamon, Armor Rush, Hunters, the deck that I'm playing right now. Even though we all thought that Mirage Galacticmon was gonna die, players are actually playing Mirage Galacticmon decks. They're just using the I think it's the BT12, the Mirage Galacticmon that just bounces Tamers. They've been using that instead because so many decks right now rely on the use of Tamers that they can just like get value out of that card alongside the one copy of the older, really good Floodgate-esque Mirage Galacticmon. So it's funny to see this deck still just fighting around. And then, of course, Shine Greymon, because things never change. Shine Greymon, Mirage Galacticmon, always around. In training, I think, is where some really interesting stuff is happening. The Angels deck, specifically, it feels like a lot of players within the past couple weeks have really, how to say this, with the bump of Megidramon happening in games, at locals, it feels like people are running back to, like, the 3 Great Angels and Mastemon decks as a way to fight against those. I think it's really tough for Megidramon to do almost anything to the Dominimon gang, with him being able to just like pop one single security and save the squad, and he can go wide as well with like the Magna Angemon cards. Really presents a problem here. The deck is a little bit slower though, but as long as you're not checking security and giving your opponent free outs early on, I think you should be in a decent position. Alongside Ancient Garurumon, a deck that I've also seen pop up a couple of times, and I'm not sure. I guess it's just because bouncing is like so prevalent and such a good way to removal right now when so many decks rely on the deletion. So being able to bounce cards back to hand or bounce security to hand so that they don't get free access to tools is actually pretty nice. And then rounding out the last bit of the in-training here, things like Examon, the Medusamon, something I fought earlier this week, kind of spooky still. Ancient Greymon, like in the red hybrid alongside blue hybrid. Tyrannomon, which is kind of a surprise pick. And then there is one guy who keeps winning with Ulforce Vidramon, and I don't know why. Maybe he's just a menace at his locals, who knows. And alongside that is also the adventure archetype, which we've seen, I think, on this channel a couple of times so far. Yeah, in a deletion meta, it feels like Ancient Garurumon is a great little annoying ass card. So that's been week 3, and we're gonna move on to week 4. You're gonna notice a huge change. So get one last good look here, and then we just pop over to week 4. A lot more concentrated, I feel like. Maybe it's indicative of the future of the environment right now, but you see the slide of Sakuyamon. There's a really interesting thing that happens, I think not only in Digimon, but most games, where players really don't, players feel like one deck, like 1 or 2 decks are really strong, maybe just one deck. In this case, maybe 2 decks are equally strong. No one's interested in playing the second best deck. So like the second best deck it like slides in representation. It's like, all right, I'm either playing, like if I'm going to sweat, why am I going to sweat with like number 2? I'm going to sweat with number 1, right? So I pick what I think is like one of the best decks in either Royal Knights or Megidramon, and then everything else, like the second best deck right underneath him, maybe Sakuyamon, it just like slides. So, although to be fair, I think the Sakuyamon can kill you just as fast as Megidramon, but maybe not as often. That's probably the best way of putting it. So when you take a look outside of just those top 3 though, something really cool that's been happening in China is the creeping of a deck called, or what they call, Happy. It's the combination of the hero archetype with the Appmon cards. If folks watched my stream a little bit while back, where I was running the Hunters stuff using like a tech of Gaiamon and Dogachmon as a way to close games out, the hero archetype in Happy from China has been utilizing this a lot, where they have like the speed and the power of the regular hero deck, and then their closer can be like a Gaiamon or just like a big blocker in Gaiamon. So that's really interesting to see, and I'm really interested to see how this deck develops. I think maybe after I finish up with Hunters, I want to give this one a shot just to kind of see what it's all about. Outside of that, it's been Galacticmon hating all the Tamers, Crossheart playing all of the Tamers alongside Adventure as well. There's been some really cool stuff with Adventure, where they've kind of like mixed into some other archetypes as well, and we'll take a look at one of those today, which I think was really interesting. Examon, still doing well. A lot of these lists that weren't doing particularly amazingly, and then I took a look at the Chinese results, and a lot of them kind of just shot up in results, because I feel like a lot of folks in China maybe believe in these three decks. Or maybe Happy, Crossheart, and maybe Adventure. Maybe the three I say they believe in the most. Yeah, remember how last week I said that with the introduction of Megidramon being so prevalent everywhere, people have been like playing out Angels and Mastemon. Well, the trend continues. You can expect that to probably continue for a little bit until they find some sort of way around these really annoying effects to protect your boards, and then Digicross on your opponent's turn, or Blast Digicross on your opponent's turn, or Digivolve, excuse me. Wow. Below that are some of the staples we've seen before in the Galaxy Toolbox, which I think maybe feels underrepresented in Asia. Considering our world champion last year won with Galaxy Toolbox, it's kind of crazy that not more folks are playing it, in my opinion. The deck is decently fast, where you can get up something big on turn 2. Hexablaumon seems like a real big problem for the Megidramon deck and being able to swing, unless they have like a Medieval Dukemon perhaps on the board. But even then, he can, on their opponent's turn, the Galaxy Toolbox can get a pretty big Megidramon. Maybe the promo Gallantmon could be problematic. We'll see. Gallantmon again. This feels like a nice even split between the regular version and the blue version. So we'll take a look at the blue version today. Again, just chill for a moment. Imperial Dramon Virus players, note that we see you. Mirage Galacticmon, again, still winning. They just keep using the old Mirage Galacticmon, the one limited version or limited copy, and then the other 4 of the Tamer Bouncers, and they're doing just fine. What happened? We were supposed to kill the dogs. We got one in Infinite Lugomon, but Mirage just sticks around no matter what. And some of the decks we saw last week as well in Shine and Purple Hybrid. And then rounding out the bottom here at the in-trading level are things like 7 Great Demon Lords, a deck I didn't expect to see that much. The Angels I mentioned before, Alphamon, Lord Knightmon. When I think about it, how different are Lord Knightmon and Megidramon? I think maybe the one difference is that Lord Knightmon will put you to 0 security, whereas Megidramon will just kill you outright. That feels like the one difference, and like look at the gap between the two decks. That's crazy. Mother Control, I think this was actually just a D-Reaper version deck. I'm not sure how to display like the difference between a control deck that uses Mother D-Reaper and a just D-Reaper deck. Like it feels like it's really hard to denote the difference between the two. Omnimon Ace, a deck that I thought was actually not bad in this environment. Maybe the prevalence of Sakuyamon makes that a problem. I feel like this deck could be really problematic against Megidramon, but I haven't tested it myself. I wanted to this week, but I said I'm going to continue playing Hunter, so maybe in like the following weeks give it a shot. That one Ulforce guy, the one Ulforce guy, I don't know, guys. He's doing his thing. And then, yes, the Fogomon, we saw the slide last week alongside Armor Rush. Dextorogodamon was an interesting one, and again, Imperial Dramon sees the slide alongside the Savagomon Bros. So that was most of the results from the past 2 weeks. Use Mother for control, the Rush Reaper for actual D-Reaper. Oh, that's actually not a bad idea. That's a good point. Let me make a note of that one. Hold on. Green Hill Mario, really out here. Brain going at 200 miles an hour when I just woke up. Got it. So if you see Papa, it's an actual D-Reaper deck. And if you see Mama, it's just control. Got it. So we're going to take a look at lists for week 3 and week 4. And starting with week 3, we had... The first one I want to take a look at is Adventure. It feels like we've talked a lot about Adventure, but we've never actually seen a list for on the channel. So I definitely want to give it a shot and take a look at it. And let me pop this up. This feels like one of the more solid lists that I've seen. I think maybe some of the differences that happen between Asia and the West, Europe and America and LATAM. Asia tends to include a lot more copies of the TIE Tamer, where it seems like they always want to be able to utilize him and then still play another one, maybe one more during the course of the game. That way you're always getting 3 memory. You always have a way to like play a big Digimon out of nowhere, and you give your Courage or United We Stand. I forget the name of this card in English. A way to be used. Whereas like if you're just trying to evolve up to a level 4, sometimes it's really difficult. Oh, sorry, to a level 5. Sometimes it's really difficult to get there over the course of a single turn. So yeah, it's also for more draws, right? Like the fact that whenever you just attack, you can just rest him and draw a card is kind of nice. And the deck is very, very, very hungry for card draw, right? You've got 2 draws here. You've got the draws from him. The super, like all the evolutions from things like the Togemon and the Birdramon are also really nice. The free evolutions at level 5s. But outside of that, like there's not much. I mean, you've got this deck though does make the change. This deck does go super ham on the draw cards. In like the cards like Biomon, who can search out top 3, and then also even the Palmon. I've seen even lists that I've run in the past only like use like 2 Palmon, but this guy said, no, I just want to draw for the level 3s, and that's it. He's got a couple floodgates in the Tintomon to stop Digivolution reduction costs, so the training cards get hit this way. Yeah, it doesn't stop Crossheart, but yeah, training cards for the most part get hit here. Really, really good floodgate, by the way. And then from there's also a little bit of card draw in the Garurumon cards. I was kind of surprised that they didn't include any copies of the Gabumon, or in this case, the Agumon or the Gabumon. In this case, the Gabumon, considering we see the Medusamon Aces and the War Greymons. There's just none of that. It's all just focused on card draw at the early stages. The level 5s, I think, is another point of difference between Asia and the West, where I feel like Asia believes more in Anjouwon, or at least that was the case the past couple of weeks. It seems like she's starting to be phased out. I think the West kind of already picked up on this and kind of already cut down on copies of the Anjouwon before. I think a lot of folks, myself included, I really like that card, Anjouwon, being able to just like evolve for free whenever you either play something or evolve something else. It's really, really nice. Oh, sorry, you can evolve something else whenever you play her down or evolve into her. I got that backwards, my bad. But it seems like in this case, most of the level 5s are just focused on pure disruption, where you see things like the Metal Greymon for Digivolution. You've got the Zudomon to source strip and potentially bounce cards. You've got the Lilymon as a way to bottom deck cards that are already suspended. And when you combine that with cards like the Mega Kabuterimon, there's pretty much no card in the game you can't get rid of with these two. Although there is a split of like 3-1, so it's harder to find the Mega Kabuterimon in some cases. And it's always also difficult to know when to use him either offensively for his effect to unsuspend your card so that you attack again, or defensively in order to suspend something so that your Lilymon can seal the deal and clear the board. Lilydramon, is that a thing? It sounds like a real Digimon, but it's probably not. And then finally, you got the Skull Greymon to help you recurse and play at level 4s whenever he's deleted, in which case could be like a Birdramon or a Togemon, and then you can give something raid and retaliation, so you can swing into big Digimon your opponent's side. So there's always the really cool tech of being able to run a Skull Greymon in with a Tsunomon underneath, and then our Courage United, that's what it is. And then whenever it dies on the swing, you can use its effect to recurse a level 4 Togemon, use the Tsunomon to pull back the same Skull Greymon, and just use the Togemon to evolve back into the Skull Greymon here. And if you have our Courage United out, you can also just play at level 5. Pretty funny. Yeah, this deck also runs 1 copy of Genai's House. I'd always preferred the Island of Adventure just because it kind of forces your opponent to either attack your security immediately and give you a free tamer, or you just get a plus 2,000 boost on all turns, which I think is kind of nice. But this one goes for the plus 3,000 and then tucks at the bottom of your security, so it's harder to get to. And I guess they just want the buff on their Digimon at all times, even more so than just playing tamers. Personally, I like the idea of like playing tamers as much as possible, where this deck has no tamer or no level 4s that play tamers at all. It means you're typically just hard playing them out every single turn, which feels a little slow in my opinion. And then speaking of the tamers themselves, I actually like the splits here. 2 of the blockers, 2 of the rush tamers, and then 1 of the Joe and Mimi and the Sora and Kairi as a way to gain memory alongside your 4 copies of the Tai tamer. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at some of the choices in this list, but it feels like it does pretty much everything that the deck wants to do, right? Level 3s just draw and find your pieces. Level 4s are for the most part made to just evolve quickly into level 5s. And once you have your level 5s, with the combination of their disruption effects and our Courage United, it's really hard for your opponent to unstick your board, right? The Skull Greymons also help with that as well, being able to replay stuff without the use of our Courage United. It feels like a really annoying deck to fight against, because once those level 5 come out, they typically never leave. Yeah. The 1 copy of the Omnimon X antibody, because of course, right? I gotta finish the game, and everything's already got Rush and Alliance, but if I need 1 more swing after the memory tips over, this is the guy to do it. And yeah, that's pretty much the adventure deck that I guess like the way it's been shifting over here in Asia. So if you're playing out there in the West, you can feel a little somewhat vindicated in that it feels like for the first time, Asia is adapting to what's happening over in the West. No Anjumon? Yeah, so yeah, like we mentioned. Or Anjumon, excuse me. So that was our first deck. We're gonna take a look at another one here from week 3, and that is Galacticmon. Hot damn. So I'm so sorry about this. I didn't realize this until very recently, but this Galacticmon deck is missing some cards. This guy, I didn't see because of the Gallantmon here before. Can you guys see this? But he's actually hidden 3 cards, and I wonder what they could be. But the deck itself is pretty much by the numbers. Here's a better looking version of the list so you can kind of see what's going on. I love the fact that it doesn't just stop at 4. It keeps putting the cards underneath in DigimonCard.dev. But I think a lot of folks in the past, they were wondering, like, do I want to use the Tsumemon for the DP buff, where you can also use Tsumemon as part of your Galacticmon cards to slot more than one underneath and get like a 6,000 buff on all turns, which is kind of crazy? Or do I want to go the Dorimon route of being able to just draw more cards whenever my sources increase? Because I'm always trying to find my pieces, right? Always trying to find more pieces. And then, of course, the 12 Vimmon. I think that this is the number that a lot of folks have kind of just agreed on, myself included. When I kind of put the deck together just to test it out, I was like, I really can't fit more than 12, it feels like. So it's like 10 to 12, I think, is somewhere around the sweet spot. And of course, we've got the new Vimmons from BT18, rather, who do some searching for you, and then they can reduce cost like all the other ones. The search is actually kind of nice, rather than having to just like play a Vimmon and then wait for the main effect to wrest it from the old BT11 one. You can just hard play and get this. This is really nice because there are a lot of cards now that let you just play down Vimmon for free. So this is a really good way to just get like free search without having to rest or like do it on the next turn. And then, yeah, I kind of understand this. The new Vimmon from BT21, not that amazing. It's good as a couple copies just to like pull something back from trash with Vimmon and his text, which in this case is basically everything in the deck. But like having to, I don't know, like typically you're trying to pull from the deck and not from the trash. You're typically trying to fill up your trash with Vimmon cards. This one does that, but then it kind of like cycles. But in most cases, I'm like, I just want to put stuff in there. I don't really want to pull it back until like I'm using my level 4s, level 5s, or level 6s. Moving up the line here, the Snatchmon, the BT18 version is always really good just because Digicross. I think folks at this point have pretty much cut out the BT11 version of Snatchmon just because he's been power crept to hell by these two, where this Snatchmon here is also just a search top 3, put a Vimmon in hand, trash the rest, which is crazy. Filling up the trash with Vimmon this way is so nice. When the deck first came out, I was like, man, there's a way I could just like discard the Vimmon that I see on searches to trash. Snatchmon is the answer to that. And then his inheritance of like popping 4 costs are kind of nice. Really similar, and reminds me of the mineral deck from Liberator, the Black Liberator mineral deck. Destromon. The new one is okay. It's okay. The D-Digivolve is nice for every 2 Vimmon. You can typically get like a D-Digivolve 2 on your opponent's Digimon, and then his effect of like not being able to have his, you can't trash its stacked card, so you can't like de-digivolve him specifically, makes it really difficult whenever the turn you get to your Galacticmon, if you go into this Destromon and then go into the Galacticmon, that means that Galacticmon is typically sticking for a turn no matter what. Not being able to be de-digivolved is amazing. At least for a turn anyway. And like I said before, the Vimmon that searches, this Distromon, whenever would be removed from the battle area, plays the Vimmon, so you can play the searcher out and then get the search off of his death. He also just ends attacks, which I think is becoming a more common effect. It feels like this was first locked to purple, but now being able to just like throw away 2 Vimmon and just end an attack is kind of nice. Though keep in mind, you're still getting end of attack effects. I'm looking at you, Megidramon. But we all know the real star of this deck is the promo Destromon, being able to just lay, like the laser you see here, he becomes heavy arms on children. Just bombards them and murders them outright. Because you can typically have like, I don't know, 6 to 8 Vimmon underneath this guy, it's not hard to just wipe out all of your opponent's tamers in one go. Actually, this guy is the GOAT, yeah. He's actually the GOAT. And then of course, who could forget it feels like the old Galacticmon. I thought that personally, I'd like to have like 1 copy of the old Galacticmon in here, but the new Galacticmon is just too good to ignore, right? 4 Vimmon in text, and then you get the Ragnarok Cannon effect for free, essentially. That's so good. This sets you up for like a game-winning play, especially if you have something in raising the following turn. And then every maiden phase, he just deletes a Digimon. The old one pops security every single time, but this guy just like deletes a Digimon, and then whenever because you delete a Digimon, if your opponent didn't have 2 things on the board, whenever he attacks, you can use the Ragnarok Cannon delay effect and just wipe out your opponent's security in one go. And then, of course, like all Galacticmon, you sacrifice 4 Vimmon, and then he doesn't leave the battle area, which makes him very, very sticky. Outside of that, it's mostly things we've seen in the deck. Less copies of Fusionize than I thought. I typically thought this card was like at a 4 of. It's really, really good card. And then he rounds out the deck with only 3 Ragnarok Cannons, 2 Black Scrambles, and then the Zenith Tamers. And this leaves space for 3 more cards in the deck somewhere, which honestly, I don't know what they could be. I tried to think of like black option cards that it could be, but none of those really feel, I don't know, right. Invisimon would be actually hilarious. Destromon and Invisimon pop out, go to security, then you get to replay level 6 is kind of nasty. The problem is, I feel like if it's another kind of Digimon who doesn't fit in the archetype, it's really hard to find him because most of this deck's draw is based off of searching. Maybe the increased black scrambles way to get by that. That's possible. Shadow Seraphi Ace, maybe. Yeah, I mean, maybe it seems like maybe just min boost and trainings. If it was a training card, I think that right now, black is one of the few colors that doesn't really have to utilize the training cards at all, because most of their cards can just be played by like Digicrossing, and you typically only want it for like one level, so it's like, okay, do I really need this? I don't know. The more I think about it though, the Medusamon Deck does kind of seem nice, but it'd be crazy to include 3 copies of Medusamon. Maybe a level 7? Oh, that's a good point. But what level 7 would you include in here that would like fit thematically? We can even take a look really quickly. Also, Card Otaku. I love the updates you did recently, man, but we got to do something about... Oh, he fixed it. Oh, it's fixed. Unless this is just my cache. I take back everything I said. The site's perfect. Level 7s, just in general. Like, what level 7 would make sense here? Like a Quartzmon, maybe? That doesn't seem great, though, because you're destroying all the tamers. So, like, you're taking away his fuel, so to speak. Maybe one of the Millenniumon cards, but he doesn't have any composites. Zubagon Punch would be hilarious. That'd be actually funny. Is there a way that he can unsuspend? If you can find a way to unsuspend, then maybe it's a black card that does that. It'd be hilarious if it was just like a medieval Dukemon. He's like, you know what? I need some good generic support for the deck. Medieval Dukemon, why not? Alter B. He doesn't have a way to... I guess you could tuck more than one level 6 with Alter B, right? But you need to have a lot of level 6s in the trash, and the deck only has 4. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean outside of the Snatchmon. Like, you need like at least one more unsuspend, right? Because Ragnarok Cannon... hit. Oh, I guess never mind, that works. What if it's the old Armageddonmon? Very doubtful, but turning off level 7 effects is actually kind of hilarious. I think though one of them has Millenniumon Overclock for swing, but that's like, yeah. Bolt Bauda. Does Bolt Bauda do it here? I always forget that he's black. I just assume he's like a purple yellow card. Trash the opponent's top security. Not necessary though, right? And giving up the Galacticmon protection seems weird. Anyway, let me know what you think those last 3 cards might be. It feels like there's like an entire universe of like possibilities there. I really do like the idea of like Invisimon though, being able to just like go into Invisimon, swing, put him in security, and then you can go into a Galacticmon, and the following turn, Invisimon comes back down. Seems kind of nasty. Though, how do you pick it up with the deck doing so much search based on names alone? Unless you just write in Venmon at the bottom of the Invisimon card text. That's one way, I suppose. All right, so those are the first 2 decks we take a look at this week. The third one is going to be our members showcase. So one of the decks that we haven't seen so far and that members voted on, thank you very much for all of your support out there for the folks who do vote anyway and who are members. I really do appreciate it, is this one here, and I have so many questions. I have so many questions. So this version, this is Medusamon, and this version, I sat down with it and I said to myself, I feel like I'm missing something here. I truly do feel like I'm missing something. Let me show you a better version of the list. This one I think came out of China, and it's won like 2 events I think so far. And the person who posted up the Chinese events even noted that it's like kind of a strange list, but it still sees some success. Snake Shoes, where I sat down with myself. I said, okay, maybe there's like some combo that the hero cards in the Guillemon, Agunimon, Arresterdramon Superior Mode provide. And I said, okay, maybe there's got to be a combo here. So I sat down, I thought about it, and it's kind of strange, right? Because Agunimon, he evolves for cost minus when attacking, and because you evolve when attacking, Arresterdramon Superior Mode's when evolving effect cannot be used because you're already in the middle of an attack, so you cannot attack again. So this would just fizzle. So there's like anti-synergy between these 2 cards. Although getting a big Digimon for a cheap cost is nice, it just seems awkward. I thought, okay, maybe even if you just evolve for regular cost for 3, and then you evolve, even if the memory tips over, you can evolve and attack with the Arresterdramon Superior Mode here. If you've got the Elizamon and the Metromon on board, and when you check that security, you gain 2 back, you actually get to keep turns. So I'm assuming that you started at 3. Assuming you started at 3, you evolve for 2 into the Agunimon, evolve for 3 into Arresterdramon Superior Mode. He attacks on evolve effect. Dimetromon and Lemiamon or Dimetromon and Elizamon and Sources see that and gain 2 memory back, so you can continue turn, and then maybe go into a Medusamon, but that seems really, really heavy. So I don't think that was the case. The Guillemon here makes perfect sense, right? It's a reptile, and it has the ability to ditch cards and then draw more. I get that. My guess is that based on what I can like theory crapshoot, and I haven't used this version of the deck myself. Based on what I can like see from the effects and the way that the deck is built, I think these are just ways to push more damage. That's typically, I think, like, I think that's just what it is. They're just looking for ways to make your Owen Dreadnoughts even more useful, considering they run 6 copies of the card, where I think most decks don't run that many. They run increased copies of the Red Tamers as a way to use the Gunimon and the hero cards to take advantage of that and just put out more damage overall. The deck already does a shit ton of damage, right? Like that's not a point for debate, I think, for a lot of people out there. Medusamon hits hard and it can kill you out of nowhere. And the fact that they have access to the Gunimon to go on top of Tamers and then a Digimon Superior Mode for additional attacks just seems like more of a way to do damage more quickly. My only reservation is that you're paying full cost for the Superior Mode, and the Gunimon Superior Mode seems kind of like a strange choice. Outside of that, the deck is pretty much what it's always been. Yeah, the hero needs the Digimon does need to discard a hero. You can't just discard anything. Keep that in mind. But whatever you throw away, like if you throw away like an Digimon Superior Mode, when you evolve it to an Gunimon, you can just put him back under source, so you get some value out of that discarded card, right? So you get like the plus 2,000, he becomes a 7,000. But yeah, my guess is that it's just trying to push as much damage as possible in any avenue that it can. So outside of that, like the deck is just doing what it does. Like I said, like I mentioned before, you're getting to Medusamon and you're just like gut checking your opponent. Sec +1, the petrification token, like the ability to get rid of security whenever attack targets are changed. Playing more reptiles very quickly. Yeah, also, yeah, like I mentioned before, a bit of anti-synergy. You can play a 5,000 DP or lower Digimon here, but it cannot be the Gunimon because he's a wizard, and the Digimon Superior Mode is not 5,000 or lower, and he's also just Dragon. Really strange list to me, but my guess, or my hope was that someone out there could show me what I'm missing, because I feel like I'm missing something here. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, so I'm hoping that some folks out there will see something that I don't, because I do not see it. But I wanted to show it off regardless, because I think it's interesting enough to worth at least talking about. Double Omnimon X is heinous. Oh, keep in mind, Omnimon X being a Liberator card means he's searchable by the Elizamon. Yeah, I grab my Dimetromon and one Omnimon X antibody, and we keep it pushing. Someday my Jesmon will be there. Gross text that makes sense. Yeah, the Omnimon X antibody makes perfect sense, right? Being Liberator is crazy. So that was all for week 3. Let's take a look at week 4 really quickly. Oh, so I mentioned before, and I think that some of the commenters also just mentioned, for Asia, the equivalent of our regionals called the Grand Asia Open. Yeah, called the Grand Asia Opens for cycle 1 of the competitive scene are starting up. And I think China had some of their qualifiers a couple of weeks, like 2 weeks ago. And they're continuing, I think, for the Grand Asia Open here. This list is the one that won a 256 plus man, or 256 man bracket. I think it maxed out the entrance for one event. But there's some really cool stuff in here, and it's Megidramon. It's basic Megidramon. Again, strong deck is strong. See, this won one of the Chinese Grand Asia Opens, and it makes sense. I think that a lot of the stuff that's in here are pretty common for the deck, for the build of this deck anyway. Most of the stuff from the Guillemon cards before Growlmons are mostly the same. Interestingly enough, they include a couple copies of Skullgreymon, which I think is so cool. Gives you a way to deal with the board outside of a Gallantmon, gives you a way to put more cards in the trash for your later turns, and gives you a way to deal with the board without having to gain rush in some way. Like, because the effect of the Skullgreymon is just like ditch a card in hand and then delete one of your Digimon, and if you have only the Skullgreymon on the board, then you can also delete him and then delete your opponent's board, so you keep your board nice and clean so they can't interact with anything, and then you wipe something down on off their board, which I think is really cool. The deck doesn't have any Agumon, so you're not going to get the rush effect here at all, but this was being able to like get rid of the board in some way. You can like commit some pieces to the board, and if they don't get wiped out but your opponent starts to build theirs, the Skullgreymon is a great way to manage board size without having to hard play down a medieval Gallantmon or one of the Gallantmon cards, assuming your trash is not filled up, right? So really interesting tech being pioneered here in China from like the use of Greymon or Skullgreymon out of archetype, but still spooky as the rest of the deck. In that case, I guess he fits right in. Yeah, I didn't realize this. I thought that lists were only playing like 2 copies of Purple Memory Boost, but even when I went to locals this week, the guy that I played against was running 4 copies, and I checked one and I wanted to kill myself because that was the reason I lost the game. But yeah, 4 Wisdom Trainings, 4 Purple Mem Boost, 4 Gravity Crush, 1 Jack Raid, 1 Calling from the Darkness is so much memory. It's insane. Then they just do what they do always, right? Megidramon, build up enough cards and trash to blow him up. Then you replay the War Growlmon to evolve into the Megidramon, thanks to the Digimon pulling back the Megidramon that just got destroyed. That's why we only see 3 copies of this in the deck. From there, you can hard play the Gallantmon for reduced cost. He will blow up the Megidramon, and this, because it has the War Growlmon and sources, will force the opponent to discard another security off trash. That's 4 at this point. Typically, the Megidramon also has Growl X in sources, so he can just replay another Rush Growlmon, and then once you hard play the Gallantmon, you can attack with this guy and then attack with the Digimon if you so choose, and that's the entire game. That's 6 security, so no one will live. No one, including me. I've seen some players only run 3 copies of Digimon in this deck, and I think to myself, why? This is like one of your win conditions. I like the idea of maxing this guy out. And finally, we showed off a couple copies. We showed up a version of this list on the channel before that uses the red Digimon, but the purple Digimon is really just too good to ignore. Pulling back something with Growler Gallon in name is so powerful, and because good old Megidramon counts as Chaos Gallantmon, boopy doopy doop, you're dead. Megidramon saw Jack Raid and Blinding Ray get banned and felt left out, so they maxed out Grab Crush, yeah. But I mean, this deck, very strong. Won the Grand Asia Open qualifier in China, 256-man event. I think the finals were a mirror, if memory serves me correctly, and cool info, or stay tuned, because we're actually going to take a look at the Grand Asia Open, this event rather, from China next week. I think that the guy who posted the Chinese results also sent me a list, well, not list, but like a link to the actual tournament itself, so we can take a look at some of the games there. Really interested. I feel like China is kind of like the black box of Asia, where we haven't really seen much because they were playing a different version of the game, so we never cared. But now that we have like them playing the same game, it's really interesting to see some of the tech that's coming out of that country. Growl X not long for this world, damn. Growl X gotta catch strays. I really think that this card is crazy. The fact that it's on deletion trash and security lowered my entire value of what I thought a security was worth. And it's only uncommon. That's crazy. So that is the Gallantmon. Like if you're looking for like a top version of the list, this is definitely one to look at. And if you're looking for a version of the list to fight against, this is definitely one to look at. Again, the Skullgreymon tech is really, really cool here. So next up, taking a look at some of the other decks that topped over the course of week 4, we have, oh yeah, so I told folks to stay tuned because we're going to take a look at a blue Gallantmon deck. So this one here, again, Blue Gallantmon utilizes a lot of these Seedramon base cards, and a lot of those cards that got support, I think back in like BT20. It does this to great effect, where the old versions of Gallantmon typically only blew up Digimon and got memory off of that. The blue version of Gallantmon feels a little bit more control-y, having more flexible tools utilizing cards like the Seedramon X Antibody to bottom deck cards, as well as suspend Tamers and then force them to stay suspended, alongside the Mega Seedramons who can bottom deck a level 4. Then you can also stop one of your opponent's Digimon from suspending until the end of their turn. Also, focus the offense of the deck in effects like can't be redirected, or can't have their attack target changed. Lots and lots of jamming. So it doesn't, even though your Gallantmon X is already massive, it doesn't even matter what you check at this point, because there's no chance you'll die now ever. The ability to unsuspend whenever you play other Digimon, thanks to the Mega Seedramon here. And because the Crabmon is so cheap at 2 cost, you can do things like play a Crabmon, go into your Gallantmon X here, and then you can attack, unsuspend with the normal effect while attack. I guess just attack and then unsuspend. And then you can go and use the Mega Seedramon effect here to attack again, absorb the Crabmon, and if you're still hard up for memory here, you can utilize the Crabmon to go into Crabmon X Antibody alongside the Cool Boys to gain memory off of that 0 cost evolve. So there's some really cool little tech in this deck. There's also just lots of offense it can put out on its own. Like if you need that one more hit, the Seedramon here giving you just having Rush inherently is kind of nice to close out games. You've also got the ways to gain a little bit of memory off of the EX8 Seedramon. The deck, of course, it's blue, is going to use a couple copies of Hexablaumon for more Tamer hate alongside the Seedramon X Antibody, as well as ways to stop opponents' boards from being able to swing. Looking at you, Megidramon, so that you can wait out the game until you find your pieces to win. Because this deck is an X Antibody-focused deck as well, your Hexablaumon is going to have a ton of sources. And will almost never lose an Iceclad battle for the most part. So there's that. What else is there to say? 4 copies of X Antibody because you're running lots of Cool Boys makes sense. And then just lots of memory efficient cards like the Blue Mimboost, Mental Trainings, Hammer Spark, and the Blue Scrambles alongside that. Hexablamon is a crime unless you're playing Ice Snow with it as your boss monster. Well, this deck is criming then. This deck is criming. Yeah, just lots of, like I think that there's a player in my local scene by the name of Aki who's been running the blue version of Gallantmon for a while now. He's been having a lot of success with it. A ton of success. So yeah, really interesting list. If you've been playing Gallantmon and you want to try something out that's a little bit newer, and honestly, might be a bit more adapted to the current meta, considering bouncing is so annoying for a lot of decks, rather than just like hard deleting. Blue version Gallantmon might actually be a really good idea. Definitely give it a shot. Do we feel like Hexablamon is becoming the new BT11 Mirage Galgamon? Maybe. That and Invisimon, yeah. So, yeah, Invisimon, it's like Hexablamon, Invisimon, and Gallant X feel like they became best friends thanks to the Galaxy Toolbox, and now folks don't want to separate them. X used to mean something. Nope, it means more sources. So yeah, I mean, there's also like, yeah, because this list is so flexible at the top end, you don't have to use these cards, right? If you want to add in something like an Invisimon, it's definitely possible. Want to sit at the cool boys table? This is the list to use right now for BT21. But that is Gallantmon. Pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, one last thing here. The deck uses the Demi Vmon as a way to gain more card draw. Considering the deck does have so many jamming cards, like I mentioned before in the Crabmon, you've got the Seadramon cards here, the Seadramon X, oh no, not the Seadramon X antibody, excuse me, the other Seadramon here. There's just lots and lots and lots of jamming, so they feel like they can always get card draw off of the Demi Vmon egg here. I wonder if there's a better version, a better option for this. I don't know. Wouldn't be tamer based. Maybe this is like one of the better options for the decks for the Digi Eggs. So yeah, if you want a way to have the hard-hitting power of a Gallantmon X antibody with the hatred for deletion effects and tamers that Hexablamon and the rest of the Seadramon cards provide, definitely give this list a shot. Which will bring us to our last list of the day, which is, yes, the one that our members voted on. And this list was so cool. This deck was so cool that I thought about building this right after I saw it, because there's so much neat synergy between everything. And it is Mastemon. And remember before when I said that some players were utilizing some of the adventure cards as a way to branch out into other decks? This is one of those. So taking a look at a cleaner version of the list here, this list is so cool. There are so many small things that I just love about this list. So it utilizes the Mastemon cards alongside the adventure stuff. Whereas the Gatomon being a security effect is kind of nice. If it's checked that way, then you get a free level 4 on the field, and the following turn you can just go into one of your level 5s. You've also got the new Anjouamon. Because the typical Anjouamon, Lady Devimon, Mastemon stuff just plays Digimon, it's so easy to get her own play and when Digivolving effect to evolve into something else. So you can go incredibly wide on turns, I feel like, by evolving something into a Metal Garurumon Ace. So I think the line here, at least from my understanding, is you want to evolve into a Lady Devimon who plays out an Anjouamon, who can then evolve the Lady Devimon into a Metal Garurumon Ace. The Metal Garurumon Ace can play down a level 4 Gatomon, like this one here, the starter deck one, for free. You're going to search, and then it can evolve for only a single memory, because it's cost -2 Digivolution. You can play you can evolve into a third level 5, and this way your board is like exploded over the course of a single turn. And not only do you have the Metal Garurumon Ace here at your fingertips, the bottom deck stuff, and utilizing his effect, because you need 2 tamers with 2 different colors, essentially 4 different color tamers here. The Joe and Mimi are such an awesome choice here. Gaining the memory off adventure cards is cool, but also being able to reduce the play cost of your adventure cards in the Gatomon here, making it like a 2 cost or a 3 cost instead of a 4 cost, letting you keep your turn is really nice. And then they give you the colors alongside the Mirai Tamer to bottom deck a level 6 with the Metal Garurumon Ace. Really, really, really cool. I love the idea here. And then you've also got because you've got 2 level 5s on the board, you've also got the option of the Masty Ace in your back pocket at pretty much any time, as a way to like stop your opponent from making more plays. You are exposing yourself a little bit with the Metal Garurumon here, but you can also opt to just not do that and just keep the level 4 or level 5s on the board. And if you don't have the Mastemon Ace, then you have this on top of either one of your level 5s. Even though it's only purple evolution cost, because the Anjouamon is an adventure trait card, you can use the rule text box to evolve off of that for the Blast Digivolution also. So your opponent always has to be wary of any level 5 you have on the board. This was really cool list. All of the Anjuwomon cards give you Alliance, every single one of them. So this one here with Angel or 3 Great Angels on the board, it gets Alliance, and then the Anjuwomon also just gives Alliance inherently. The Lady Devimons can help you clean up the board by popping level 4s or lower, or just playing down the Moray Tamers, as well as gaining Retaliation on all of your Angels, which is really annoying for some decks. And then you've also got the Morays in order to cheat out your level 5s very quickly to get up a Mastemon or level 6 really soon. And then finally, we've got the new promo Mastemon card, which the more I read this card, the better I think it is. When it first came out, I looked at it, I was like, it's whatever, right? It's no War Greymon card. Or it's no Gallantmon, but recovery is awesome, and then you can take, it has hatred to anything your opponent has, Digimon or Tamers on the board, and by just existing, you get to put something on top of their security and then just trash it immediately, which is nice. And then whenever you trash one of your own security cards, you can play down, when you're attacking or digivolving, you can play down a 6000 DP or less Digimon. It locks you out of the Adventure Anjuwomon, unfortunately, but all of the other stuff in the deck does get touched by that. So you have still a lot of options. And then finally, you've got Adventure Gabumon in here, which seems kind of wonky, but when you think about his effect, the Your Turn effect, I had to double check this in the rulings Discord last night, but if Gabumon's on board and you evolve something else like a Gatomon into an Anjuwomon here, this Gabumon can evolve into the Metal Garurumon for free. I didn't know that. I thought that this effect was kind of locked on its own, but this is a passive effect. And because it's a passive effect on your turn, whenever you play or evolve into the Anjuwomon here, if you've got the Gabumon here, he can directly go into Metal Garurumon Ace for free. So there's a lot of really small combos everywhere in this deck that just make it seem really cool. And I'm really glad that I found this list. I definitely want to give it a try myself. Like, I don't even play like Mastemon almost ever, pretty much ever, but I'm actually interested now. So if you're interested, definitely give this list a shot as well. Also the Nyaromon for card draw, but yeah, yellow cards. This is, yeah, like the adventure cards being slotted in here seems like a really neat interaction. And I feel like you can push this even more, excuse me. I just gotta get more Mastemons now. Dang it. And she's still like $10 in price, I think. But that's pretty much all of the list from week 3 and week 4. Yeah, really cool time. I think we've got the DM stuff coming out at the end of next month, so we still have a little bit of time with this set, and I'm really interested to see how Yellow evolves alongside Megidramon becoming so popular. I think that decks like Royal Knights might give decks like this problems, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds.